I could change anything, I'd love it to be 2 hours. Third hour of television is so exponentially harder to write. I can't even begin to describe it to you. It just is really difficult.
Hopefully, of course, y'all enjoy yourselves. Whatever wrestling show y'all continue to enjoy, kudos to y'all. SmackDown or Rampage, whichever y'all enjoyed tonight. Hopefully y'all enjoyed, whichever, both, or, whichever. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. That's always important, especially to me. Whether you're not a part of the brethren, or you're on the outside looking in. Hopefully y'all just enjoyed your night. Typical Friday into the weekend, and y'all just enjoy yourselves. Kick back and do what it is, whatever y'all enjoy doing. So I'm obviously here for a reason. As you see me geared up, sitting back in the throne, I'm obviously here to talk about, just as you see, the runtime and what's important, and so much of an emphasis that needs to be shown on that, and what needs to be looked at when it comes to the length time, the runtime, the overall time management of the show, overall of the WWE when it comes to their product. And before we get into the gritty of it, I just felt like, we may need to go over a few pointers, before I carry on. Now, only before the past, as of course true OGs know, but as WWE was getting their name, WWE always, specifically also as well, the birth of Raw and SmackDown always had a specific length and time. As of starting off with 45, close to 40 to 45 minutes, before eventually bumping up to an hour. As it was getting it start off, because they had to build that up to even have a bargain, to even have such a more time length. They had to build to even get a name off, as they were just getting started to even be kicked off. WWE television used to be an hour, even before, like I just mentioned, 40 up to 45 minutes. It made perfect sense, especially when you look into it, coming off the fact that their internet was pretty much vacant and not really that popular back then. You also should take in that, kayfabe, I would say kayfabe, but, kayfabe was pretty much dead at this point, especially when it got to the late 90s, the mid 90s to the early 2000s, so that was pretty much, when you talk about that. Then you had, like I said before, the internet was pretty much non-existent, as close to its beginnings, starting in the late 90s. And then you had to, so people, as far as like just spending your belief and going off of what the show had to offer, especially when you also take into the rising megastars in Stone Cold and The Rock, of course The Undertaker and Kane, DX, the Hart Foundation, all of these pieces going around, and you could take in the fact that just WWE television, especially with WCW, it was also good back then, which is why the length, even so, like I would obviously, I wouldn't consider even not making 3 hours back then, because it begs for more, and it gears in the audience to beg for more, asking for more wrestling, and wondering what could happen next, especially which you had a lot, during the boom of the Attitude Era. You had a lot going on, and where people were just out of their minds, and they were just completely going ballistic over just how good the product was, and how wrestling just was at its peak when you talk about during these timelines. Being 1 hour to 2 hours in that time slot. I feel like a lot of that benefited, of course, when you look at the star power back then at the time of the rosters and that WWE had, especially in John Cena, the Batistas, and Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Stone Colds and the Rocks had everybody, especially in with the rivalry that had everybody. They had their own story. They had their own rivalry and everything else in between, characters, storylines, wrestlers. They had their own. They had everything going on piece by piece between themselves, and it made sense for the time management as well. And for the next 14 years, as we would famously become also known to a new era, sacrificing many of the elements that contributed or made a plus towards WWE's content, sacrificing all that to a much more family friendly and appealing to that sorts of kiddie, family demographic. And then for obvious reasons, seeing as the length time, whether they would bump up to 2 hours, finally becoming the staple that would be known as 3 hours. I showed y'all earlier, even Triple H said it himself. That third hour is such a head shaking, brain grabbing to even comprehend. Like, why just further strain, the writers' heads even further from content that's already not even that good enough to begin with? It's like, why make your jobs even more harder? We're still, for the last 14 years, or you can say the better part of 30 years after the end of the Attitude Era, the WWE's content, overall enjoyment, entertainment, they started to dip. It started to slump. And, it being 3 hours, is, it being 2 hours, I believe is bad enough. And then bumping that up to 3 hours as they did for, for a number of, several years, like, yeah, that's completely unreal. And, why would you wouldn't even believe to think of that, because they're not even that good. They're not even that good to begin with right now. So, you can't even understand or why they would even make it so as which, like, people have trouble getting to getting through an hour, especially how bad Raw has just been. Like, and then you want to have 3 hours of that. People don't want to go through 3 hours, especially like I said, I made this a notice multiple times, but people don't watch cable anymore. Mostly people, especially younger adults, kids, they watch. If they're not on social media, they're on YouTube. They're on streaming platforms. People, cable is not a thing. So it's like I said, I think also the bump to them probably being on YouTube would also be a bigger plus. But them making like the shows being 3 hours is detrimental enough. Like, and then you have the point of them of where it's like their viewership is dropping. It went from because it's still not good. People are still, it's just like last night. It's still mediocre. Like, I understand he's probably focusing on. I don't mean you need to, but I understand. Like I said, I understand that he's focused on obviously bringing back, people that was under his wing, that he took under his wing. But you gotta focus on the content as well. You can't just, like, what's the point of bringing people back if the quality and the content within the shows, like all the aspects, they're all down, and they're just completely unwatchable. So I feels like them going back to 2 hours, I would even go as far to go to 1 hour again. There's a reason why, especially with at a time too, they used to have a roster that was so stacked and glorious. from the likes of Undertaker, Kane, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton. You know, I feel like them going back to an hour would extremely help their cases. An hour or 2 hour, because I don't even think they can do that nowadays, especially with the, of course, with the sponsors and everything else that they have when it comes to ad revenue and stuff of that nature, because how much money they make from those. So them bumping it back to 2 hours would make a whole lot of sense. Give more room, for the writers, more ideas, and just more than enough time to just relax and sit back and just come up with ideas that can make sense and make the content much more enjoyable and much mesh well together. Like I said, there's a reason also why you had their content before was 2 hours, whether it was an hour, and then eventually bumped up to 2 hours. Because they had, it was still a lot to think about, so they didn't want to add more, just piling on more time to their content to just recklessly, and then still have. And now you're at a point of where the content is just automatically extremely down the toilet, and then now y'all just like want to like continuously add more hours, and then just when the content is not even that good right now to begin with, and like not enough people are even watching, and you just want to make it even more harder on yourselves and the writers, also just everybody else too. So that just doesn't make any sense at all. So I believe the 2 hours would definitely even go as like, because I don't know if that will work, but going as far as to an hour, I feel like would be much more helpful as well, because that would because you have to focus on, because it boggles down to the wrestlers also, because the wrestlers obviously they have to have the charisma. Like I said, we could care less. Obviously, you need to have the ring ability down, but if you don't have, like, what's the point if that particular wrestler don't have the charisma or the character to get over with an audience? I've always continuously said, and nobody can deny it, we all, the reason why we enjoy the entertainment that we do, and the reason why people have talked about and longed for the Attitude Era for so long, even as far as the Golden Era, or Ruthless Aggression Era too. It's because people, without a doubt, they love characters, and the stories that intertwine between them. So people love stories and their characters, and you can't, you can try to mesh, like, you could try to put a blanket as much as you want over that, but you can't. It'll still, you can try to mask it as much as you want, but you can't. It's pretty much in plain view. And I feel like that, bringing that much, especially down to 2 hours or so, would help them much more better, as far as building stars, as far as having characters that stick, that get over, and having wrestlers that have that range of charisma and versatility to get over and understand how, to whether they relate and to get over into the crowd, would definitely help out a lot. And I feel like 2 hours, adding 2 hours back would definitely be a big plus. Once again, we're at a time that wrestling is in a hole. It's underneath a shoe, and it's just helplessly, desperately, it has the potential to get back where things used to be. What made it so enjoyable and watchable by the likes of everyone around the globe. So yeah, that's what I truly believe. But whether or not it happens or not, I don't know. That would be a great step in going forward. So, if y'all have any ideas, also, in which y'all believe what will make wrestling, great again, and yeah, y'all can talk about it as well. So, yeah, stay blessed.